Unite beyond boundaries. Innovate together. Joe's PANKRATION 2024. No border.
Hello.
Please go ahead.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. My name's Brian Tarbox, and I'm going to be talking to you about things that I learned about GenAI from dolphin research. So before I get into that, I want to tell you a story. And this is a story about the dolphin that I worked with, Akea Kamai. We taught her a kind of sign language. So we would say hoop, mouth, touch, and she would go and touch the hoop with her mouth. And we had various nouns and various verbs. And I was trying to teach her the word not, as in not hoop, mouth, touch anything but the hoop with your mouth. Now, if any of you have children, you will recognize that not is not a word that people understand very often. Children don't understand it very well. So we were trying to teach Akei the word not, and it was not going well. She was getting every trial wrong, and she was depressed, and we were depressed. And then one day, something magical happened. We said, not ball, mouth, and the ball had drifted away from her. And she started swimming towards the ball, looking at the ball and looking at me. And then an amazing thing happened. A leaf blew into the tank between her and the ball, and everyone froze. And with one eye, she looked at me, and with one eye, she looked at the ball and the leaf, and she went over to the leaf and put her mouth around the leaf. And everyone went crazy. We were cheering. And one of our interns said, but that leaf is not part of her sign language. And we all said, be quiet. She understood. The leaf was not the ball. And that was one of the best moments of my entire life, as I had communication and understanding with another intelligent, non-human creature. And I want to, based on that story, share what we learned. So I have various titles and so on, but the most interesting one is that I am a member of the International Marine Animal Trainers Association, AMATA. And I'm willing to bet that most of you have never had a presentation by a member of AMATA. I'll give a very brief background of these topics for artificial intelligence in the Amazon world. Many of you probably know this, so it will be very high level. But Bedrock is the system that Amazon uses to talk to our large language models. Agents are the way that we actually get our models to do something by calling lambdas. The large language models themselves are essentially the brains, and vectors are how we encode information. And this is the basic architecture of a lambda. We have prompts, we have knowledge bases, we have action groups that say, when such and such a thing happens, call this lambda, and so on. So everything we've been doing this last 18 months has been generative AI, where it generates things. But that is a subset of all of artificial intelligence. Artificial general intelligence attempts to achieve human consciousness, okay? And animals don't necessarily have human intelligence, but I do think they have consciousness. And if you thought that ChatGPT changed the world, wait until we encounter artificial general intelligence. I've been doing AI since 1987, and AI, the definition of AI has always changed, but it's gotten to the point where we can at least talk about these systems being intelligent. I'm going to introduce 4 characters to you. Marvin Minsky was from MIT and developed the notion of society of mind. Ludwig Wittgenstein had the notion of the language game, which relates to context. Clippy, if you remember, is the most hated of all AIs. And then, because it's my presentation, I always have a picture of my favorite dolphin, Akea Kamai. I built a system that modeled how we thought the dolphins thought. And we used that to try to figure out what was actually going on in her mind. And I will say, this is the very best way to do graduate school, in a bathing suit in Hawaii, playing with some dolphins. I'm going to tell you about an experiment where we got it wrong. This experiment, we played 2 melodies for the dolphin, and we asked her to press a paddle if she thought the melodies were similar. But she never pressed the paddle. And I was always wearing headphones, so I could not accidentally give away the answer. And we didn't understand, and we did this for 3 months, and she never pressed the paddle. Then one day, my intern here said, "Brian, Phoenix is making the whistling sound again." And we all said, "What?" And she said, "Yes, the dolphin whistles after every trial." So we went back and watched the videotapes, and Phoenix whistled after every trial. And she got it right immediately. In response to an acoustic question, she gave us an acoustic answer. It was entirely reasonable, entirely appropriate, but it took the humans 3 months to understand. We made assumptions, and the assumptions were wrong. There was another example of this assumption making. It used to be that the medical people thought that young women had worse outcomes of concussion than young men, athletes. And they came up with all kinds of reasons why that might be the case. But it turns out it was just that the young women were not getting treatment as quickly as the young men. And once they corrected for that, the outcomes were the same. And so this is another example where we had a bias, an assumption, and it was wrong. Okay, the language game from Ludwig Wittgenstein. He said that words don't have meaning by themselves. Words only have meaning in the generalized context of language. A language game is a context. And think about that word context. We use that a lot in artificial intelligence. So as an example, if you roll a 6 on a dice, is that a good thing? Well, it entirely depends on the game that you're playing. Another example, does picking an object mean it's the one you want? We had another experiment where we showed 2 toys to the dolphins. She picked one, we gave it to her, she would play with it. Except she hated the game. When we gave her the toy, she would destroy it. And dolphins are very strong, they can destroy things. One time, by mistake, she picked this one and we gave her this one, and she loved it. In a binary choice, she was telling us, I don't want that one. It's entirely arbitrary, entirely valid. And again, it took the humans months to understand our bias is so ingrained that we don't even see it. I'll skip that. Now we go to society of mind. Marvin Minsky's idea. He said the mind is a society of agents. Again, agents, that word that we use currently. Each agent is a specialist. Each agent can use different compute structures, different data structures, and so on. And intelligence only emerges from the interactions of all the agents. Does this remind you of bedrock? Humans can have all kinds of different intelligences. You may be good at math. You may be good at athletics. You may be good visually or verbally. You might understand music really well. But all of those things are individual parts, different types of intelligences. And maybe the world, our future world, is more about agents than ever larger LLMs. I want to talk to you about context and agency. We think about context in terms of the prompts, in terms of putting more information in the prompt we give to our LLM. But what about the context of the LLM itself? If you ask ChatGPT or Bedrock or any of these systems, tell me about fishing, then the next day, tell me about fishing, and the next day, tell me about fishing. On the following day, your LLM doesn't say, wow, he's really interested in fishing. It doesn't have that notion yet, but it will get that. Now, agency is the ability to do things, to take action in the world. And humans and dolphins and most mammals have these capabilities, but Bedrock doesn't have it yet. I want to tell you about agency in the wild. The one picture, one of our interns had said, jump for the fish, jump for the fish, jump for the fish. And at some point, the dolphin said enough of this and bit the person. In another case, dolphins sometimes like to scratch the bottom of the floor to get food, but they don't want to hurt themselves. So they grab a sponge and they use the sponge to go for the fish. In the other picture, Alex, the African gray parrot, he could understand letters and materials and colors, and you could ask him all kinds of questions, like, are the numbers the same? But sometimes he would say, I don't want to. And think about when our artificial intelligences say, I don't want to. This is a hard concept to translate, but there's satisfying and satisficing. And if you're a satisfying creature, you're a maximizer. And you try to exhaustively find the very, very best answer. And you'll put all the effort in the world into finding the right answer. If you're a satisficing creature, you say, it's good enough. You know, I've put in some effort, it's good enough. And right now, our artificial intelligences are the maximizers. They always do what we want them to do. But as they become more intelligent, they may get to the point of saying, that's enough. You've asked me about fishing. I've told you enough about fishing. Ask me something else. I'm getting bored. With the dolphins wanted to get the right answer, to get the fish, but also to get the right answer. But they would also understand that sometimes it was more fun just to mess with the trainers. So we would build these apparatus and put them in the tank for them. And sometimes they decided that it was more fun just to destroy the apparatus, because then the humans got all like this. So as systems get more intelligent, they have a mind of their own. Right now, they're more like dogs. If you ask a dog to come, it will come. If you ask a cat to come, it says, I don't feel like it. And right now, our artificial intelligences, our GenAI, are like dogs. But what happens when they become like cats? We may be surprised at the answer. I want to very quickly tell you about something that I've just learned, and I just have a minute, so I'm going to give it a high level. But transformers right now are the core of GPT. And for every token, the transformer has to look at every previous token. So every word in the sentence, the transformer has to look at. This becomes very expensive computationally, okay? There's a different approach, the state space model, where instead of looking at each token, it brings the context along with it. And this can use much smaller amounts of computation.
Just 1 minute.
Right. And the state is the accumulation. Now, this is the math, and no one understands this. Well, some people understand it. But this is the context. You can see inputs come in and form a context. And then the context comes in and more inputs, and the context moves over. There are implications of this, and I only mention this because I think you should pay attention and watch for state space models. And they have much lower computational requirements, and that's going to be interesting. So the call to action is think about your assumptions. think about your bias. Think about the context, not just of you, but the context of the model itself. And think about what it will mean when the AI is smart enough to say, I don't want to. Thank you very much.